Hey, y'all. Thanks for tuning in to episode 14 of the Peace Podcast. Just give me peace within, with him, and with them. And I'm so glad that you guys are tuned in. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And I have a special guest today, which I'm so excited about. One of my super close friends whom I love so dearly, Effie. And I'm going to have her introduce herself, and then we're going to get into her story and how she found peace.
Hi, Carrie Nicole, my dearest sister. What an honor and a privilege to sit with you today. My introduction, I think, is I am a child of God. I am a mother. I have attempted to be a wife, and I am a sister. I contribute in any way that I can to my communities. I love the fact that I'm blessed in so many ways and that I can serve in different aspects of what I do. I love what I do on a daily basis, which is always just mind blowing. And I'm privileged to have three children who are amazing, and I'm a recent grandmother. So I'm in a new season of life.
Love it. And if the followers want to find you, which is a definite, because I know that that is going to be the case after they hear you speak, but where can they find you on all your platforms so that we don't miss that part?
Okay, so I am Effie Hwande, which is EFFIEHWANDE. That's on Instagram. I'm effiemedia.com, EFFIE media, media.com. And that's on the website. So there's so many other ways of connecting with me, but those two primary links give access to the rest of the information that I share.
And also, Effie has a workbook that she just put out. So we're going to link that in the description too, so that you guys have access to that. You have it near you? Oh, you can show it to the
I
screen.
always
Love
do.
it.
I use it all the time. I have it, as you can see, I use it all the time.
So we'll link that in so you guys have access to that. And so Effie and I became friends this past year, and it feels like a lifetime, even though it's only been, a year. And we immediately connected on a level where we were like, okay, we're sisters. It's a thing. Like, I don't know, God destined that to happen. And then when we started to have discussions, we started to unfold that there were way more similarities than just in personality and ambition, and also being, sisters in Christ. But there were so many other similarities that we had experienced. And so when we had those conversations, I was like, oh, your peace journey is just something else. So let's talk a little bit about that. How did you um, first come to realize that you were in chaos and then get to your place of peace?
I think when you choose the path of an entrepreneur, you are trying in your best way to bring a solution to chaos. So I've been in business since the age of 16. So you get to understand that for people to need what you do or for you to provide a solution, you have to be willing to go through the mess and the chaos. So that's a given.
Yeah.
I think as you go through life and you grow in any aspect of what you're doing, guess what? The chaos gets worse sometimes. And it comes with different levels of madness on some occasions. So you have to have an ability to separate yourself from the chaos. Always remind yourself why it is you're doing what you're doing and why you continue to love what you do, and then have the energy and the resolve to move on. I said resolve, to move on. So that's an aspect of how I've always encountered the levels of chaos. And then I come to my faith. That's the foundation of the peace in the chaos. So my faith walk has always served me and continues to serve me every step of the way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that was something that we greatly connected on because there's a lot of chaos with having kids. There's a lot of chaos with, creating content. There's a lot of chaos in relationship. And I think I don't think I know that when we have our conversations, something that we've mentioned time and time again is that it always comes back to scripture or God or like some form of, yes, this is happening, but how am I learning this lesson through it? You know? And so, yeah, we definitely connected on that. And so now that I know that you said faith was a big part of it, but now that you've experienced the difference between chaos and peace, because I think sometimes when we're living in chaos, we're like, I don't know the difference between this and what peace looks like. But now that you've experienced that level of peace, what does it mean to you and what does it look like to you?
So the level of peace, I think sometimes people confuse peace with, everything's perfect. There's no hassle. There's no quarrels. There's no qualms. No, there's a turmoil that could be going on. But in spite of that turmoil, in spite of the challenge, in spite of the headaches, there's an inner peace that you have that says to you, through it all, I have peace. And
Mm,
it says, all things will work together for my good, even if it doesn't look good right now. So there are a number of occasions or incidents that I've lived through. I said 2023, I survived so many things that I thought would have killed me. 10
mm,
years before, I'd say to you, if I ever go through this, it's going to kill me. If this ever happens, it's going to kill me. I survived it. So there's
mm,
a peace knowing that, having gone through that, having lived through that, having survived that, I'm still here and I still have a lot to be excited about. And genuinely, I'm excited for each day. I look forward to the next challenge. So I think that's the understanding of peace within.
mm,
I could be walking through literally a valley where you're being challenged in relationship, you're being challenged by the situations your children are going through, you're being challenged financially, you're being challenged in relationship, you're being challenged in your work. And yet there's an inner knowing, something that just says to you, this too will pass. It's going to
mm.
be okay. My joy is coming. So that's how I explain my peace journey and my peace walk.
Yeah, and it reminds me of that quote that's like everything that you thought you'd never be able to get through, you've gotten through. So like at this point in life, everything that you stood up against that you were like, I'll never be able to get through this, you're out on the other side of it. And then also something you said that is a point that I've tried to make several times on the pod and even in my content is that I think oftentimes we mix up peace and joy and happiness, right? Like it's not always happy, but
Mhm.
you can still experience peace and joy. It's
Mhm.
not, I mean, you can experience that peace and joy through tears, but you may not be happy while you're experiencing it. So when you think about that, like when you think about the fact that your peace didn't always come with happiness, what are some things that come up for you?
Where do I start? Let's begin. So I'll do a separation. There's occasions where I would look at my friends around being a mother or parenting. My friends are the moms who are there for every game. They're there for every occasion and every event in school. They seem to have this wholesome, they're cooking the meals and they're doing all the things. And I'm busy tinkering away, building a business and getting on with the things that I think I need to create to have investment that generates a better quality of life for my family. So in that, you could start judging yourself to say, I'm not good enough, or I'm not living up to what I see. What I've learned over time is, funny enough, sometimes those people are also looking at you, desiring what you have, wanting a bit of where you are without understanding. I've had conversations with people where I said, I've been watching you for a long time and I admire you for this, this, this. And they'll say the same. Yeah, I've been watching you too. And I admire you for this, 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 this. What that says to any of us is you could look and the grass might be greener on the other side, but there's an expression. I've heard different ones, but the one that sticks with me the most, it says there's snakes in that greener grass.
Mm.
because the challenges are different. It's more moist, it's comfortable. So snakes will be attracted to go there. So don't always necessarily look at what you perceive my life to be or what you perceive my journey to be and wish you had that without understanding the fullness of what it is. So that's in the aspect of business. I feel as though I chose, not that I was made to do it, I chose to invest initially in building strong business in exchange for having that quality time of my children while they were in their infant years. But I now have quality with my children in their adult years. So we have an opportunity to make up for that. So there's an importance of not pressing yourself down too much and saying, how I wish this could have been. No, make it what you can make it because you've achieved what you set out to do. That's with family. In business, there are so many opportunities that you could say, oh, things could go a different way, or I would want things to go a particular way. I have a discipline of being clear on what it is I'm setting out to do and why. I have a clear discipline of knowing who I need to work with and how to be involved with them and what each person is bringing to. I am very comfortable with having uncomfortable conversations in business, and I'm very good at setting boundaries as well, where we say, okay, this starts here and ends there. Okay, that has ended. What does it mean now? So that we can move on. So I hope my long response still covers the question that you asked.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that is the journey of the peace within. It's really doing that. I talk about doing that self inventory often. It's thinking like, okay, these external factors are happening. There are examples of something that I'm not.
Mhm.
And how am I resolving inside of myself to be who I was crafted to be and to find joy in that amidst all of the chaos and everything that's going on outside of me?
Yeah.
Um, and I think, that is the true essence of the peace within. But then there's also this overlapping with the peace within and your peace with God, right? And so sometimes there's that chaos that you create with your relationship with Him
Mhm.
because you don't quite have that peace within. So I feel like we delved a little bit into the peace within. Let's talk about your journey to finding peace with God.
When I look back and I reflect on my journey, yes, there was an occasion where I acknowledged who I was in the absence of my life with God. And I made a decision to invite him into my life and say, okay, from this point on, I need you in my life. But even as I look before that, and I look at the occasions and the journey of my life, I can tell you that there's always evidence of the presence of God in my life. So even though I didn't acknowledge him, it's not to say he wasn't there.
Mm,
So when I got to a point, I think it was actually when I was about to have my first daughter, I thought I love to control things. I want to be in charge of things. I'm about to have this baby. What's going to happen with this baby? I need to be at work. I need to be away. I'm going to leave them in places. So there was a level of surrender that says, I don't have it all. I can't be in all places at all times. I need God. So that was the turning point for me personally. But in that, there's a piece that came. And I think sometimes people are misguided that when you give your life to God, it's going to be smooth sailing and it's going to be, no stress, no harm, nothing. If anything, I think that's when you're more aware of the
mm,
challenges of a life and the choices that you make outside of the will of God. So the word of God for me is a foundation. It's the blueprint that every Christian person should be using. We don't always get it right. We might fall short. Not might, we always fall short. It says we fall short of his glory. We do. But if
mhm,
we continue to come back to that mandate, if we can come back to that blueprint, if we continue to come back to the instruction and we do everything we can with the help of the Holy Spirit to live a life that is pleasing and acceptable and pursue that on a daily basis, I think when we then look at our lives, it can be a reflection of a significant transformation, which we can't do in our own strength.
mm.
And
Yeah.
where my life in him or the peace that I have with him comes in. I can come up with so many examples of choices that I've had to make. You know, when you have an inner peace because of the amount of time you spend in the Word, there are opportunities that can be presented to you on a personal level in a business setting that are too good to be true or too good to miss. But there's an inner peace and an inner knowing or a grazing that says, Effie, yes, it's good, but it's not for you.
Mm,
If you don't have that witness and you still go ahead and do whatever the opportunity is, yes, you might do well materially, but there'll be reasons why you are being kept away from that. Maybe it wasn't necessarily the right partnership. Maybe there were complications that would have come along the way that you chose to ignore. So I've learned to take time to listen and to really pray on things, personally, as well as in work and in business, in relationships with friendships. There are things that you could say, oh, this is just the way it has to be. But I always take time to say, let me present it before God and say, okay, this is what I'm thinking to do. In the past, I used to make a decision to do things and then say, here, bless it,
bless it.
bless it. And it didn't always work. And then you want to blame. It's like, no, it doesn't work
Mm,
like that. I also want to add, there are people in my life who I've either known really close or who I study from a distance, mentors. And when I look at their lives, there's a consistent strain in their faith walk. If anything, they keep building up and getting stronger in that. And I
mm.
think that speaks to say life is what it is, but we must always have that core anchor, which for me is the word of God and the relationship that I have with God. So there's no other way. I could get it wrong, but I must still come back. I must
Mm.
still acknowledge who and whose I am, who is the source of everything I have, and who I belong to.
Yeah, and you said something that really stuck out to me because I think that people who are listening may not have found that peace with him because perhaps right now they're going through something and they're frustrated with God or they're struggling with their relationship with God. And I just want to name that is, you're not alone in that journey because I think that even when you have that relationship with him, even when you're standing on the foundation of your scripture, there are
Mm.
times where you're just like, for real, God, though, like, come on, and the thing that really changes that for me, and I think you spoke of it a little bit too, is not having that expectation that you're making decisions on your own and
Mm.
then you're handing it to him and saying, well, if I'm a child of God, then you'll bless this decision.
Yeah.
And I've done that so many times. And then the aftermath is me being frustrated with him because I had to go through a tough season.
Yeah.
And I think also the other part of that is sometimes we forget that just like when we're parenting our children, sometimes we have to let them fall so they
Yeah.
know where their safety net is. Sometimes we have to let them struggle so that it's productive struggle and they learn the lesson they need to learn to be promoted to the next phase. So, did you see any of that inside of your journey to finding peace with him?
I have fallen so many times and I have fallen. So again, as I said before, I think people who haven't had a similar life experience or who haven't had any encounter with understanding or choosing to have a faith walk because maybe they've had disappointments in life, etc. There are times, even after I made a decision to come to the Lord, was I lost one of my sisters died suddenly. And I was filled with anger and I just couldn't comprehend how can a loving God allow that to happen. So there's no perfect walk. And
Mm,
I think a lot of people want to deny themselves that intimate relationship with God, where as a father, you can present to him the challenges and the struggles that you're having and then be prepared to hear him when whatever the solution is might be contrary to the direction you
Mhm.
wanted to go in. A lot of
Yeah.
people don't want to do that. We come almost in a manipulating posture to say, I have faith in you, I believe in you, but this is what I want. And it doesn't
Yes.
work like that. So there's a lot of people who've been disappointed by maybe past experiences or who've looked into the lives of the people who are leading at the forefront and they don't necessarily resonate with what they see. I believe my peace with him comes from the relationship that I have with him and the amount of time that I'll invest in the word by myself, for myself, not for
Mm.
show, not because other people are making me do it, but because I desire to have relationship with him. Um, I know you have a strength in understanding the psychology around relationships and how generally people behave and characteristics. So you have a strength in that. So you are able to understand different ways that people will respond in different circumstances. But ultimately, I think it's important that as an individual, be vulnerable and say, God, this is who I am. You created me. Your word says you created me for a purpose. You knew me even before I came to this earth. So there was an intent, there was an intention. There's a purpose for me. So, what is that purpose? And I'm willing to be quiet enough to hear it, to be still enough to take your instruction and then to follow it through, even if it's contrary to public opinion, even if it's contrary to the direction in which everyone is going in. If I stay deeply rooted and connected in him, my life is a testimony of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to connect to thinking about that public opinion, like I think that one of the greatest struggles in the world that we face is
Mhm.
finding peace with other people when they're not in alignment with us, or when they're judging us, or when there's conflict with those people, or when we're like, I just want this to be peaceful and this other person is creating this chaos. And so that's really the part of where you find peace with other people. And when you're thinking about that in your life, like I know that the peace within is super important for that structure inside of us. And the peace with him is even more important because we need to hear from him and we need to have that relationship with him so that our steps are ordered.
Yes.
How do you deal with having peace externally when there's so many things happening that just aren't aligning with who you are and what you want to be happening in those spaces?
I think I'll look at it in two ways. One, as if I was advising my child, uh,
Mm,
in terms of the connections, the links, the friendships they have. And I've done this with my older daughter when she was making different decisions or wanting to make different decisions about pursuing her university degree and completing it. I'd say to her, go out. I'm not telling you what to do, but go out and find 10 people who chose to cut short their study and look at the life that they have now. And if you
mm,
desire to go down that path, and you've made your mind up that that's what you choose for yourself, and you're willing to live with those consequences, good or bad or either way, then go for it. But here's the deal. If you choose that path, I no longer can finance that decision. I can no longer support that because I believe you need a level of foundation, you need a level of education, you need a level of intelligence to navigate through life. So
mm,
I'm hoping as a parent that my life experiences can speak into shortcutting some of the challenges that I went through by offering my children a better opportunity, a better platform to start from, and a better outlook because I'm looking at things from a different angle. So that's how I would approach it for my child, and I've done for my children. If I look at it in the context of amongst friends or associates or people, we have this circle of influence, and I love using it when I start working with someone. and I draw circles within a circle and within another circle. So the first circle is God. And if you're married, the next circle is you and your spouse. And then if you have your children, that's the third circle. Then it's your parents and then your siblings. And then right at the outer circle is associates, work colleagues, etc. And I ask the question, when you're making a decision, what is the most important aspect of that decision to you? Who do you need to make reference to in that decision being made? And when you follow the circle of influence, it's usually God first. What does his word say in the decision that I'm making? How am I aligning? So even if I'm doing something wrong, I've acknowledged that I'm outside of the will, right? Then if
Mhm.
you're married, it's like, okay, am I in agreement with the person who I've committed my life to be with through thick and thin till death? Are we aligned in this decision? And if not, why not? And then you
Mm.
go to your children, and then you go to your parents and your siblings. But what you find is with most people, we do the reverse. We make decisions based on the opinion of people who are in the tier 7, 8, 9, 10, who should have no permission and no right to speak into what we are doing. They can have an opinion, but it shouldn't influence the core of what we're doing. And I also find whenever there's a negative outcry or people have an opinion, it's usually people who are just sitting on a couch with an opinion and not actually applying themselves to do anything. It's usually people who are afraid to even take the step. They have the ability to do it, but they're so locked up in fear, they're not going to do anything. Or it's people who are bitter because of the choices they made, and they're not able to reconcile with where they are now. Instead of saying, hey, I also have a part to play in where I've turned out and where my life is now. I take stock of that. I'm going to make these changes. I'm going to realign myself in this way, and I'm going to start over. And that's what I love about God. He allows us to come before Him, to reconcile, to ask forgiveness, to reconcile, to readjust, and to move forward. So there's hope. There's always hope for a better day.
And you actually, I was going to make a point while you were talking. I thought of it, and then you actually made it for me without me even saying it. But there's the piece of this that I think that we have to remember, which is that circle of influence is a beautiful image, right? And so when you think about peace, you can access the why. Like, why is this external influence causing chaos, right?
Yes.
Like, why is that happening? Give grace to where they are, etc. But
Mm.
ultimately, you have to go back within, and you have to go back with him
Yes.
to assess your own peace, right? You're not going to get it from the external changing. And I think oftentimes we get stuck in the loop of thinking, if this thing would just change, or if this thing would just do what it's supposed to do, or and that would be beautiful, but that's not the way life works, right? And so every time you're assessing their why and understanding, the situation that you're in with these external factors, it's
Mm.
going to bring you back to you're within and you're with him, because that's the way that you really access peace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And so, oh, you've dropped so many gems. I feel like we could have made this a three-parter, but in the sake of keeping true to I understand that people don't have hours to listen to a podcast. I'm going to ask you one final question.
Okay.
So, when you think about your journey to peace, if you could look back at a younger you and she was listening, what advice would you give her about her journey and her peace?
So, advice to the younger me in the area of peace, I would start with the end in mind. And why I say that I would start with the end in mind is because I can look back. Yes, I'm in my mid 50s now. I could look back and say, oh, ooh, oh, yes, no, maybe not now. Absolutely not, not at all. So I would start with the end in mind because you you have a desire. So if we look at the things that are core and important to us, we have a desire in every element of the faculties of life, relationship, um, enterprise, or work, relationships. Um, I'm thinking health,
Hmm.
nutrition. So there's a
Hmm.
number of things that are essential for us to have long life and to live well. So if I'm talking to my younger self, I'd say start with the end in mind. Can you imagine yourself 30 years from now? What does that life look like? What are the disciplines that you need to have on a daily basis that would speak into you realizing that dream? I laugh because I remember going into nursing school. I was not even 20 at the time. And I remember them bringing the first week of school, they brought finance experts, they brought health insurance people, they brought pension companies to give us the toolkit that we needed to sustain and have a good life. We were all really young. We're like, I'm not getting old anytime soon. Why do I need a pension plan? I'm in a country where they give you health for free anyway. Why do I need all these other things? So, what they were telling us is by just setting aside a small amount of money, which was very little, over a period of time consistently, we would end up with a large pot of money. Simple, but too simple for us to follow. And we didn't think at the time it was necessary. And yet, if you now look back, so to young Effie, take that policy plan, take that financial advice, take that health plan, apply yourself on a daily basis, build the right relationships, find people who uplift you, who are desiring for your success in the same way you desire success for them. When people tell you who they are, believe them. Don't pursue relationships that don't serve you. So I would say to myself, do life with the idea and the instruction and the direction that takes you to the final goal that you want. So
Hmm.
have a clear picture of the life that you desire, the life that you want. Understand the roadmap that you need to take to get to that place. Also confront the challenges along the way. Don't ignore them. Acknowledge them so that when they come, you're prepared for them, so that you're continuing on that journey. And then when you fall along the way, accept that you will fall. But what is the correction plan? What is it that you need to do to stand up and continue? So those are things that I would say to the younger me, that make time to celebrate your authentic self. Make time to surround yourself with people who acknowledge you for who you are and love you for that. And make time for opportunities that build you up to your ultimate desired goal.
I love that so much. It's like that vision of is what you're doing now getting you to where you want to be, and then continuing to assess that. And speaking of people who lift you up and bring joy and knowledge, you are one of those people, and the listeners just got a bunch of gems today, and I just really appreciate you and your yes. I know that you say it's an honor, but it's also an honor for me to have you here. And I just appreciate your knowledge and your wisdom and just your vulnerability to share it, because, a lot of people will get to that place of peace and they'll forget that younger version of them. And I feel like that's something that you and I consistently connect on, is like, when I was here, these are the things that I did. But now that I'm wiser and stronger in my walk with God, this is who I am. But I want to reach back to the hers of the world and pull
Yeah.
her up to where I am, because that bondage is, not where we want anyone to live. So I appreciate you and I love you so very much.
I love you too
And to
very
my
much.
listeners, I will link all of her links in the description, and also make sure that you guys can access her. And I appreciate all of you guys for listening. I'm so excited to share the knowledge of my friends with you. I'm so excited that God has spoken into our relationship so that we can continue to do that. If you haven't already, go to my social media pages and like and subscribe, and also check out this video that's attached so that you can hear more of the message. One thing that I just want to name is that when we have knowledge and wisdom and all of these experiences that we've gone through, if we don't share our story, if we don't share that knowledge, then it's not really us using it for the power that it's been embedded in us for, and really reaching back to other people and sharing how they may again get out of the bondage that they're in, that we have experienced getting out of, is really the way that we can connect and build community inside of sharing our wisdom so that those people can get to the other side. So again, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for tuning in. And thank you again, Effie, for joining me. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate and I love you too.